Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very last episode of Kokoon for 2023. And on this episode, we're so lucky to have Natasha Ducarme Aitken, who is the General Manager of Workplace Services for Altius. So welcome, Natasha. Thank you so much for being on our final episode for the year.
Thank you, Karen. It's very exciting.
Thank you. So look, I always like to start at the beginning, which is a logical place to start. So can you tell me, how did you actually begin your career journey working in this space?
Yeah, look, I always, since I was a kid, I knew that I was a bit of a helper, a healer. I always had that something that I'd like to help people. And so I started initially as an occupational therapist because I quite liked it because it was very physical therapy and a bit of psychological therapy. But early on, I sort of discovered that I was trying to help people in rehab with sore backs and sore legs. But then I realized that when they would go home on the weekend, they would come back, and all my therapy would have gone backwards. And I just sort of didn't understand. And I realized that actually the body was really connected to the mind. And I realized there was something a bit bigger. So that's really when I sort of started to go a bit more in kinesiology, which is also muscle memory. And from there, sort of, I suppose, with the years, I evolved in for more from the body, then the mind, and then a bit the soul. And that's how I really entered more into the wellness industry, but more from a holistic point of view, understanding that, as humans, it's actually multifaceted and multidimension.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I like how things sort of come together. And so sometimes what I find in my career is something I learned long ago that I thought I'm never going to use that. It actually comes in handy later down the track. Did you find that with your career?
Yes, absolutely. I think that you sort of, as you evolve, I think you learn sort of building blocks of components of a new technique or a new tip. But as you evolve, you can see how everything, the combination of all the bits, is what sort of creates, the person today, or creates a new technique, or how to solve, a puzzle. So absolutely. But everything, what I'm realizing that it's really more than ever, everything is actually really connected.
Absolutely. And so, look, you're a busy lady. Like you're a general manager and you have a family. And how do you maintain your energy levels to be able to juggle everything?
Yeah, look, I think for me, I've noticed what's really important to me. So, number one, I sort of sleep. My sleep's really important. So, I try to really listen to my body. So, at night when I'm exhausted, I won't really look at the time. I'll just sort of think, well, I'm really tired. So, I'll just sort of go to bed regardless of what the time is. The other thing is I'm sort of really, again, mindful of what sort of energizes me. So I know there's specific activities that will energizes me, and others that will really, I suppose, suck up all the energy out of me. So again, I know what to do or what activities to do or not in order to sort of get the energy or avoid doing. And I've become as well good at sort of, I mean, that comes with experience, but putting boundaries. So again, I used to be a very yes person, not a problem, I'll do it. And now more that I've got experience, I'm noticing that, other people have the competency or the skills to do something, and I don't have to do everything. And that's something, for example, I've done with my children. They're sort of 15 and 13 now, but from the age of 8, I sort of knew that they had the cognitive ability to do things, that they can do things, we don't give them enough credit. So I've taught them to be very independent. So now they actually, do things quite independently without my support, which again, all those little tweaks of my life has assisted me. But and there's just little things like, now that I'm sort of getting more into it, is of course, I've always been into exercise. I exercise about an hour a day. But the other thing now, I'm sort of really looking to nutrition. So really the impact of putting sort of good foods in the body is really sort of helping me with my energy, my concentration. So I suppose that's a new little recent addition that I'm trying to incorporate in my daily habits.
Yeah. And then what do you have a favorite form of exercise?
Yes, so I sort of do a fair bit of running. So and just running. I noticed again. I used to run because I did a triathlon, but I used to run, and then I realized that during that period I went through quite a lot of challenges. But bizarrely, I was not stressed at all, and I just realized it's because of that consistent running every day that just sort of cleared my mind. And during that run, I would sort of solve lots of problems. But Yeah, really, it was like a shield, like nothing would
Yeah.
really get to me. So, which that's why I know that that's quite a good practice for me to continue.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? When you find something that works, just stick with it.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. The only thing is is like my challenge for the moment is just combining that with travel. Sometimes if I'm in a routine, I can keep the routine. If now I
Yeah.
start traveling different hours, suddenly it's a new challenge that I'm working on.
Yeah, yeah. And so look, we follow each other on LinkedIn, and I see on LinkedIn sometimes you post about energy and human design. And I know that's not part of your current role, but this is an interest of yours. Can you tell me more about those topics, particularly human design? What is it? I know we don't have all day, and it's a big topic, but in a nutshell, what is human design and how is it beneficial?
Yeah, yes. Look, it's quite fascinating. So, as I mentioned to you before, I'm sort of so interested in energy. You can realize that with some people you connect, and for whatever reason it gels, and other people you just had this sort of physical reaction that you're not really comfortable. And so it really made me think, there's something in the energy. And I discovered, I suppose, 2 years ago, human design, which is basically each one of us has an energetic blueprint in our body. And that means that, and that's based on when you're born, that time of your birth and the location of your birth. And basically it connects on what's your energy type, what is your way of making decisions, what are sort of potentially your weaknesses, your strengths, and your sense of purpose, and how do you react to different environments around you. So what's really interesting is that I'm fascinated because at school or in society, we tell every kid this is what you're supposed to do and this is how you're supposed to do it, and you make decisions with the mind, versus human design helps you identify what makes you you and what makes you unique, and how do you with your own body make your decision. And again, we're very different, and I think the more we understand who we are, the more we can operate in a way that again help us with our energy, reduces our stress levels, and then you sort of know in what environment you need to go in order to get the energy, or what environment you should avoid because that's not good for you. And then it helps you sort of again make decisions based on what you can feel and the senses, and the mind is more to process the information, but the mind is not to make the decision. It's
Yeah.
it's when you meet people and someone asks you, oh, do you want to do something, and you suddenly think, oh, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
That's when we know that there's a reaction, and that's what we need to listen to, not the mind saying, oh, is this the correct answer, going through all the logical ways, because we make decisions as well in emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually got a sign in my office. You can't see it here, but it says, trust your instincts.
Yes. And that's exactly, and it's funny because we've got those, and when you actually tune into yourself, you notice you've got a lot of reactions which are not words, and there's just something like an aura. But again, when you go through the, I suppose, academic school, university, none of that is spoken about. It's all about, well, what are the science, what are the factuals. So this is really, I suppose, a combination of science with spirituality. So it's sort of putting it together.
Yeah. And I mean, my instinct has never been wrong.
No,
Never
no.
led me astray. My mind, absolutely, many
Yes.
times.
And that's the thing, when you think about, when you learn about yourself and you learn to trust your instinct, you sort of know that you were always right. And you usually make a mistake because you start to sort of analyze your decision and then change your decision based on the logic. And that's where you think, oh, that was not the right call.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I could talk to you about that all day. But
Yes.
I wanted to ask you too. So, I mean, clearly there's times with your work and everything where it's really intense and busy. How do you have any extra things that you do to try and sort of recover from those busy periods that you do to help you through those times?
Yeah, so I think again, when my work's really busy, is again, I sort of remind myself that, I suppose I'm the number one priority in my life. So I think that again, my self-care is really important. I always feel like, because I'm a manager, so I feel like if I'm sort of start to not cope or I feel overwhelmed, naturally the team will not come and ask me questions, or feel, well, if she's panicking, everybody's panicking. So for me, being sort of clear-headed is really key. And again, and I think that's where, again, I was saying to Karen, is really where I put boundaries. So I also have developed the ability to really ask for help. And again, and communicate. So a big thing is that when I'm sort of worried or something's puzzling me, the big thing for me is communication. So I'll express my concern, or I'll express if I'm feeling, overwhelmed, or if I'm exhausted. So I'm very big on, I suppose, being vulnerable and being authentic, because I do feel that when we bottle everything in, not only it creates fatigue, but again, it creates stress. And just the fact of liberating it, just letting it go, and just again, and being okay as well with, sometimes when we're busy, and we're worried, we have to go through a process in our emotions, and it's okay to sort of feel that we're a bit sort of exhausted. So it's just being, again, recognizing the feeling, making sure that I'm sort of, sometimes I just need to let the feeling go past, ask for assistance if needed, or again, even ask for at work if it's busy and I need to leave an hour earlier, because you know what, I'm just going to go walk in the park just to clear my head, knowing that taking that time is as important as doing a spreadsheet. So I think we sort of forget that all those self-care, like, again, exercise, taking a moment to breathe, having a moment in nature to sort of recuperate yourself is as important as work. And again, I think to perform at a high level at work, it is important that you need to recharge. We always say, athletes spend so much time prepping, resting in order for a big race. They're not on 100% all the time, which sometimes at work we tend to think that 100% is where we need to be, versus in order to perform at the top, you need to be having those times where you can regroup and recharge.
Yeah, that's so true. I forget that myself sometimes. I'm used to having a million things, and then, the last few weeks I've started to sort of clear things out a little bit, and I'm like going, oh, I should be doing, and it's like, it's not going to be like this for very long. So just, there's still work to do, but not as intensely. And so I'd have to just sort of actually enjoy it now, like not be going, something's wrong, I'm not running around like my hair's on fire,
No, and it's really hard, because as you say, when you're busy all the time, when you're sitting down, you sort of feel you've got that feeling of guilt, and you feel like oh, I shouldn't be, because I don't have the time to do that. But again, I think letting go of that feeling of guilt, and because I think specifically as well, women as well, we wear so many hats between, work, being a mother, organizing usually the social life of the kids. So that sometimes we actually we forget about ourselves, and we put ourselves, if we've got time, you look after yourself, which again, it's a pattern that I think with time we're developing. But I think it's important to sort of say, well, no, you're the number one priority. And if you look after yourself, then you can look after all your extra tasks better, I suppose.
That's so true. And this sort of leads on to my next question, because clearly you've discovered this over the time in your career. So what else do you wish you knew at the beginning of your career that you know now, to sort of make sure that you stay well in what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think, again, what I would have liked beginning my career is, again, having more time to sort of self-discover who I am. So more, and by that what I mean is, like, what are my natural strengths? What are my natural talents? Again, what is my energy type? How do you look after yourself, and how do you be the best version of yourself? So again, I think that if I had sort of known all these things, to your point before, I make a lot of decisions based on intuition, or I'm a great delegator. But when I was little, for example, someone sort of said to me, oh, you're a bit lazy. But now that I'm in management, I realize that I've got an actual talent for identifying who's good where, and delegating a task that will be great for someone else that would be far better than me. But for many years, I was thinking that, it's like I was sort of giving work to others instead of doing it myself, versus now I realize actually my delegation skills is quite a gift, which if I had understood that at the start, that it's actually, anything we do, there's talents in there, and it's how you maximize what you're good at, because that will make your life so much easier and less of it. And it's okay to be different. So you don't need to, I was always looking, at another person, they're so good at writing and presenting, and they can do this so well, and I'm not good at that. So I was always comparing myself versus instead of thinking, okay, well, you're great at this, and this, and you're different to that person. But that's the beauty of it, is that, if you combine, if you're aware of your skills and the other person's aware of their skills, and you combine it, you become really so much more efficient, and it's more working as a unity instead of all competing to do the same thing, and then feeling overwhelmed if you can't be as good as the person beside you.
Yeah. And I mean, like that, it's just, you end up doing twice the work because there's a lot of repetition that goes on. It's not a really efficient way to work, is it, when you're working just individually on the same task?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's recognizing again what you're good at and what another person's good at, and there's not one skill or talent that's better than another one. It's just that we're different.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're doing some really great posts on LinkedIn. I really loved watching and reading your posts. But my question around that is, so sometimes social media is really important to sort of share our message and build connection, but it has that sort of, it's a double-edged sword where it can become quite laborious, and we can become more connected and to our screens and our phones than maybe we should for our own wellness. So how do you navigate those two sides of the coin?
Yes, look, Karen, I'd like to say that I've got it all under control, but I'm maybe not there yet. I'm still in discovery phase.
I don't know who has it under control.
Yeah. What a few tips that I've done is that sometimes, again, as I mentioned, when I go running or I'm in an environment, I get sort of inspired. There's really a lot of things that comes to me that I want to share, and then I do sort of some LinkedIn posts sometimes sort of in advance, because that's where, again, it's really quick, it's easy, I've got so many things I want to say. So then the way I can do it is quite fast and good for my for what I'm trying to share. But then the other thing is to really, during the days, to give myself some time frame. So for example, you're on the bus, then you can have a look at it, or specific times of days or specific spaces of days where I look at it. But if I'm not in those areas or in that time slot, then I won't go on the phone, because again, to your point, we can be looking every 2 seconds. Did someone reply? Did someone happen? But again, as we know, it's important to engage with the audience. So connecting is important, but again, if we've got control about half an hour at lunchtime, for example, or half an hour on my way home from from work on the bus, then that's that's how I do it for the moment.
That's a smart way to go. Yeah, because I mean, and particularly when it is when you post something that people respond to, it becomes almost like a magnet for your attention. You're like, what's going on? What
Yes.
And I think Gary Vee, he's a digital marketer over in the States. He just says, post it and walk away. Don't look at it. But it's easier said than done, particularly if people are actually getting a lot out of it.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that I've sort of recently, initially I was always thinking, is the audience, interacting with it or not? But now again, I'm sort of moving more in the space of, I'm sort of sharing something because I feel like it helps me and I find it's important. So I'm sharing it regardless of if someone, likes it or doesn't like it. So it's again, being comfortable with, I'm just putting it out there because I think it will add value. It added value for me, so it'll add value for people. Instead of thinking, are people liking it? No one likes it. What does people think? So I'm trying again to sort of put it out there, forget about it, just check, just in case, again, there's, questions or interactions. So I think it's great because it creates a community around it. So important to respond, but not more it's more as a helping tool, not as a judging tool. That makes sense.
And that's the best, and honestly, that is the best way to approach social media, is about trying to bring value and share your message to actually bring value to other people. Going there to build your following it's not the right intention. So
no, exactly.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you as well, do you have any stories of sort of any inspirational breakthroughs that you've had with people that you work with or manage or mentor? Clearly don't say their name or anything, but that you could share with us.
So I've got a few, two different people, but similar stories, is that really excellent workers again and again. In an corporate organization, people feel like there's only one way, and you have to go to leadership, for example, to grow in your career. And these people, again, very hardworking, but hardworking were not very successful. So we're having sort of team turnover, working so hard but not getting recognized. They were not valued by the organization, maybe criticized. And when sort of, again, unpacking what they're really good at and, changing, I suppose, their roles and putting them in a lane that would be more appropriate for, like, again, aligned to their strengths and ways of operating, as natural ways of operating. What happened very quickly, the shift has happened that work is so easy. So it's really not hard anymore. It's not an uphill battle. It just like flows. And then what's been really interesting as well is that the value that they're bringing to the organization is really strong, where before they were not adding value and was potentially frustrating, versus now great value to the organization. And also and then they're being recognized. So, people naturally say, oh, thank you so much. Oh, isn't this person wonderful? This person's amazing. When maybe 2 years ago, the comments wouldn't have been the same. So what's really great is that, the person works not as hard. Their work enjoyment's much higher. Plus, they're adding great value to the organization, and they're being really recognized. So the work they're actually doing is being valued by people around them. And for me, I found that this is so important because, again, especially in corporate environment, we're always short on resources. But I see so often we put people in roles in a way that doesn't fit their style. Again, they're in and people see that as a failure. Versus in our organization, I feel like we unpack and say, you know what, you've got so many talents, but in this specific line, it's just, despite your effort, it's just not going. So let's review how we can sort of fit you in something that will add value. And I've done it a few times now, and it's really rewarding to sort of see. I like seeing the person's more happy, and I can see is really flourishing. But in the other sense, I love seeing how the organization just think, oh, we couldn't do it without that person. I'm thinking, well, 3 years ago, people were complaining, and now people are thinking we couldn't do without that person. So I think, well, it's a turn. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And whereas that person might have just left and really not really understood their own true potential either. They were just sort of in the wrong spot. It would have been a really sad outcome. And so to be able to turn themselves around in the same company is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, again, even for them, the ability to understand that the more they listen to themselves and the more they actually use what they're really good at, the better it will be for them. And again, you don't have to be the same as the other person. So again, it's really them understanding their differences and actually embracing their differences, because that's what makes them so special. So, yes.
Oh, that's excellent. I love that story. That's really good. And now, I can't believe it's November. I saw this comedian on TikTok the other day, and he said November's all just people running around going, I can't believe it's November. And so I'm saying that I can't believe it's November. And have you thought about 2024 yet? And if so, do you have any goals in mind that you'd like to achieve? Some of the guests I have on this show are more like, we'll see how it all unfolds, or where I'm guided to go. Other people are very goal oriented. What kind of person are you? And if you are goal oriented, have you got any goals set yet?
Yes. Look, I'm a very long-term planner. So again, the goals are really a few goals for my personal self. My goal is to really embrace more that sort of nutrition in the well-being, but being able, again, to have a system that I can use when I'm, in every condition. So when I'm traveling, so really sort of a good balance. And the other thing is, again, how to use human design even further in the company I work in, because I do feel like the more I can, again, educate the team around me on how to use it, and hopefully sort of that can cascade down, because I keep thinking, in a time where, we're all sort of stressed, overwhelmed, people, there's, well-being, so many people have mental health difficulties, and I think such a good tool for people to actually understand themselves in order to manage themselves, so they don't have those pressure and those stress and mental health. So I think that it has a big part in organizations, but it's hard to sort of incorporate it in a corporate environment in a way that makes sense to the teams.
Yeah, well, you're quite a trailblazer for bringing in this concept and putting it in the corporate world. I think it's fantastic. I can't wait to talk to you in the future and just see how it's gone. But I can see it working for sure.
Yes, I can see it as yes. It's really I can see there's really a place. It's about the implementation and how to gradually develop sort of that awareness of people to want to sort of have a bit of a more of an understanding of it and then implementing it.
Yeah. And so this sort of leads me to my final question. You sort of touched on it with your last answer. So in sort of the health and wellness industry, often the practitioners are so focused on giving to others, particularly when they first begin in the industry. They're really excited about what the skills that they have, and it can often lead to burnout. And particularly in some areas as well, you have to sort of do a lot to earn money to survive, because in some areas of health and wellness, it's not like really high paying. So it's a lot of work, a lot of giving. And burnout is, often rears its ugly head. So what advice would you give to others working in the health and wellness industry just to avoid burning out?
Yeah, I think look, it's really about I suppose a plan. I think that it's again, if they burn out, you're not going to be successful in your future. So for me, it's really about sort of putting a plan. What are we doing in week 1, week 2, and not try and pack 200 things in week 1 and then crashing in week 2. And then the other thing is, again, being very self-aware of what are the things that a person needs to implement to look after themselves. So, for example, as I mentioned, for me, is running and good sleep. It's making sure that those are the non-negotiables. So even when you sort of get really busy, those are the things that, regardless of what happens around you, they will be done each day. And not because, again, sometimes we get burnt out because we get overwhelmed, and all the things that we know are keeping us healthy are the first thing that go out the window. And then we're sort of surprised of why is this happening to me? So I think it's really, again, making sure those habits are good. And as we evolve, is to try and sort of continue to retweak a new habit. So, for example, for me, as I mentioned, the nutrition, or another one that I find very difficult, which is important, is drinking more water. So it's finding new ways of making sure I don't forget to have the glass of water. And so that's again, those are new tips. So it's really how can you keep the foundation that's essential, but as you move, you maybe add one extra habit gradually to make sure that you can build up on that sort of health and well-being while you sort of grow your business.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you too, like, because sleep clearly is very important, but how many hours of sleep do you aim for a night?
Look, definitely between 8 and 10, ideally 10. But I know that's a lot.
Oh no, I wish I could sleep that long. I'm really impressed by that. I think it's great.
Oh, my kids sort of say to me, "I'm not going to bed already, Mum. That's really so early." I'm thinking, well, but I'm thinking at night. I'm not a night person, so I think if you're going to scroll on Instagram or watch something that's pointless, or I'm thinking, well, clearly what you're doing here is not doing anything, so I may as well go to sleep and have a good night's sleep. Yes, exactly.
Sleep's wonderful. Like,
oh, I love it. When I lie at night, I keep thinking, oh, isn't this the best time of day?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So more sleep. That's actually on. I do a vision board every year, and this year I put that's on my vision board, more sleep. So I've done better. I've got a way to go though, but I'm getting there.
Must be like me with my water. Can't nail everything.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of my questions for this episode. Do you have any final words that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Oh, no, just the final words again. Just again, really take a moment to think about how you feel and how you feel in circumstances. So when things happen around you, how did you feel something in your body? And really take the time to really look at yourself internally before external factor. And I think the more you understand your body and yourself, you'll be able to make some great tweaks for the future.
Excellent. Wise words to finish the episode and the year of Kokoon. So thank you very much. And we'll see you all again next year. We've got a really great guest lined up for January. And so we will promote that a little bit before we do that. So if we don't see you, have a great Christmas and New Year. And thank you so much, Natasha, for sharing your knowledge and your experience.
Thank you for having me.